Thunder cracked like gunshots over Houston as Marcus Rivera found them a beaten woman and her terrified son huddled outside his garage, their designer clothes soaked with rain and blood. He didn't know that Isabella Thornton carried secrets worth killing for, or that the boy clutching her hand was heir to an oil empire. All Marcus knew was that sometimes salvation comes disguised as strangers in a storm. Follow my story to the end and comment which city you're watching from so I can see how far my story has reached. The wrench slipped from Marcus Rivera's grip as thunder shook the corrugated roof of his auto repair shop. 11:43 on a Tuesday night, and he should have been home hours ago, but Mrs. Chen's transmission wouldn't fix itself, and she needed her car for her dialysis appointments. That's when he heard a sound that didn't belong to the storm. Crying. Soft, muffled, but unmistakably human. Marcus killed the work light and moved toward the back door, his army-trained instincts kicking in after 15 years of civilian life. Through the security door's small window, he saw them. A woman, maybe 35, holding a young boy against her chest. Even in the dim glow of the alley's security light, Marcus could see the bruising on her face, the way she held her ribs like they might be cracked. Their clothes told a different story than their condition. The woman's coat, even soaked through, was cashmere. The boy's shoes were Italian leather, the kind Marcus had seen in downtown Houston's luxury stores, but never on his customers' kids. He opened the door. "Please," the woman gasped, her educated accent cutting through the rain. "We just need— Come in." Marcus stepped aside, not needing to hear more. "Both of you now." They stumbled into his shop, bringing the storm with them. Up close, Marcus could see the damage better. The woman's left eye was swelling shut, purple-black bruising spreading across her cheekbone. Blood had dried at the corner of her mouth. The boy, maybe 7 or 8, seemed physically unhurt, but carried himself with the kind of stillness that suggested he'd learned not to draw attention. "I'm calling 911, Marcus said, already reaching for his phone. "No." The woman's panic was immediate, violent. "No police, no hospitals, please." Marcus paused, studying them. He'd seen enough domestic violence cases in his neighborhood to recognize the fear, but this felt different, bigger. "My office is through there," he said, finally pointing to a door beside the tool racks. "There's a couch, blankets in the closet, first aid kits on the wall." The woman's relief was palpable. "Thank you, Don't need names right now," Marcus interrupted gently. "Just get warm. I'll bring some food." The boy spoke for the first time, his voice small but precise. "Do you have a dog?" "Rex is upstairs in my apartment, German Shepherd. That okay?" The boy nodded solemnly. "Dogs make mother feel safer." The comment hit Marcus in the chest. No kid should know that about their parent. He left them to settle and headed to the small kitchen area he'd installed years ago for long work nights. The leftover soup from Mama Rosa's restaurant would warm them up. As he heated it, Marcus's mind worked through the situation. Rich people didn't hide in mechanic shops unless they were desperate. The woman's injuries were fresh, maybe hours old. Someone had hurt her and she'd run with nothing but her son and the clothes on their backs. When he returned with the food, he found the woman applying antiseptic to her face while the boy sat perfectly still on the couch, hands folded in his lap like he was in church. "I'm Marcus," he said, setting down the tray. "This is my shop." The woman hesitated, then said, "I'm Isabella. This is Oliver." "Oliver's a good name." Marcus handed the boy a bowl of soup. "My dad's middle name was Oliver." The boy's posture relaxed slightly. "Was he a soldier like you?" Marcus raised an eyebrow. "How'd you know I was a soldier?" "The way you walk," Oliver said matter-of-factly. "Heel toe quiet. And your tattoo." He pointed to the airborne insignia partially visible on Marcus's forearm. "Smart kid," Marcus said, impressed. "Too smart sometimes," Isabella murmured, wincing as she dabbed at a cut. "Here." Marcus took the antiseptic from her shaking hands. "Let me. I've had field medic training." She stiffened but allowed him to clean the wound. This close he could smell expensive perfume mixed with fear sweat and rain. Her hands, when they weren't trembling, moved with practiced precision, the hands of someone used to delicate work. "You a doctor?" he asked quietly. Isabella's eyes widened slightly. "How? Way you hold the medical supplies." You know what you're doing. A pediatric surgeon, she admitted after a pause. Or I was until... She stopped herself. Marcus didn't push. He finished cleaning her wounds in silence, noting how Oliver watched every movement ready to protect his mother despite being half Marcus's size. You can stay tonight, Marcus said. Apartment upstairs has a spare room. It's not fancy, but it's safe. We couldn't impose... It's not imposing. It's what decent people do. Isabella's eyes filled with tears. She quickly blinked away. There aren't many decent people left in our world. Marcus wanted to ask what world that was, but Oliver yawned. Exhaustion finally winning over vigilance. Come on, Marcus said, standing. Let's get you both somewhere you can actually rest. The apartment above the shop was small, but clean. Marcus had inherited it from his father, along with the garage, and he'd maintained both with the same careful attention. The spare room had been his sister Carmen's before she got her paralegal degree and moved to a better neighborhood. Bathroom's through there, he said, pulling fresh towels from a closet. I'll find some dry clothes. They'll be too big, but better than what you've got. Isabella touched the golden pendant at her throat, a nervous gesture. Marcus noticed the pendant bore some kind of crest, a oil derrick, rising from waves with Latin words beneath he couldn't read. Mr. Rivera, Isabella said formally, I need you to understand, if we stay here even for one night, you could be in danger. From who? She looked at Oliver, who had curled up on the bed despite fighting to stay awake. From people who think they own us. Marcus had seen enough of the world to know that sometimes the most dangerous enemies were the ones who smiled in public and destroyed lives in private. I've dealt with dangerous people before, he said simply. Get some rest. We'll figure out the rest in the morning. He left them to sleep and returned to his own room, but not before checking that all the doors were locked and the security system was armed. Then he pulled out his phone and texted his sister. Need you to come by the shop tomorrow. Bring your legal brain. Got a situation. Carmen's response was immediate, despite the late hour. Another stray dog situation, or stray people situation. The kind that matters. On my way first thing. Marcus set his phone aside and tried to sleep, but his mind kept returning to Isabella's pendant. He'd seen that crest before he was sure of it. Somewhere in Houston's landscape of corporate towers and oil money. The storm continued through the night, rain hammering against windows like it was trying to wash the whole city clean. Somewhere out there, Marcus knew someone was looking for Isabella and Oliver. Someone who'd put those bruises on her face, who'd made a 7-year-old boy learn to recognize danger in footsteps. He'd been running this shop for 15 years, fixing what was broken, helping people get back on the road. But this felt different. This felt like the kind of broken that went deeper than engines and transmissions. The next morning came too soon. Gray light filtering through rain that hadn't stopped. Marcus was already in the shop at 5 a.m. coffee brewing when he heard movement upstairs. Oliver appeared on the stairs, still wearing Marcus's old t-shirt that hung like a dress on his small frame. Mother's still sleeping, he said quietly. She hasn't slept in 3 days. You keeping track? Oliver nodded. Someone has to. The kid's matter-of-fact responsibility broke Marcus's heart. He poured a glass of orange juice and handed Oliver a piece of toast with peanut butter. You like cars? Marcus asked. Father has 23 of them, Oliver said, then immediately looked stricken. I mean, it's okay. 23's a lot of cars. He doesn't drive most of them. He just owns them. Oliver took a small bite of toast. He owns a lot of things. Marcus was about to respond when the shop's front door chimed. Too early for customers. His hand moved instinctively toward the baseball bat he kept behind the counter, but relaxed when he saw Carmen pushing through the door, shaking rain from her umbrella. Joey's watching the kids, she announced, using her nickname for her husband. Now, what's this emergency? Before Marcus could answer, Oliver stood up, extending his hand with perfect formal manners. I'm Oliver. Thank you for coming, ma'am. Carmen shot Marcus a look that said, explain now, but shook the boy's hand. Carmen Rivera. I'm Marcus's sister. Marcus is very kind, Oliver said seriously. Not many people are kind to Mother anymore. Carmen's expression softened. She was seeing what Marcus had seen, a kid forced to grow up too fast, carrying adult worries in a child's body. Why don't you help me with something? Marcus suggested to Oliver. Mrs. Chen's car needs an oil check. Think you can hold the flashlight? Oliver brightened slightly. I can help properly. I've watched our mechanics work. Our mechanics? Carmen asked carefully. Oliver caught himself again, that same flash of fear. I meant at the places we've been. Marcus led Oliver to Mrs. Chen's sedan, setting him up with the flashlight and showing him where to aim it. The boy took the job seriously, holding the light steady without complaint. Okay, Carmen said quietly, moving closer to Marcus. What's really going on? Woman and kid showed up last night. She's been beaten pretty bad. They're running from someone with money. Domestic violence. Yeah, but there's more. She's educated, maybe a doctor. The kid talks about father like he's reading from a script. And there's this... Marcus pulled out his phone, showing Carmen a photo he'd taken of Isabella's pendant while she slept. Recognize this? Carmen studied the image, her paralegal brain already working. That's a corporate crest. Oil company, maybe? The Latin says something about from depths to heights. 23 cars, yes, Marcus said. The father has 23 cars. Carmen's eyes widened. Marcus, if this is corporate money oil, money we're talking about people who can buy judges, cops, anyone. So we just throw them out. I didn't say that. Carmen watched Oliver carefully repositioning the flashlight as Marcus worked. But we need to be smart. Document everything. Create a paper trail. If she's running from someone that powerful, she needs more than just a place to hide. Isabella appeared in the doorway wearing Marcus's old work clothes that swallowed her small frame. Even with the bruising, there was something regal about her posture, the way she held her head. Oliver, she called, panic edging her voice when she didn't immediately see him. He's here helping me, Marcus called back. All good. Isabella relaxed slightly, then noticed Carmen. The two women studied each other with the careful assessment of people who'd learned to judge threats quickly. I'm Carmen, his sister said, extending her hand. I work at Hutchinson and Associates, family law mostly. Isabella shook her hand carefully, favoring her ribs. Isabella, thank you for coming. Marcus says you might need legal help. It's complicated. It always is. But complicated is what I do best. Carmen pulled out her phone. First things first, those injuries need to be documented. Medical reports, photos, everything. Isabella touched her swollen eyes self-consciously. I can't go to a hospital. He has people everywhere. Who's he? Carmen asked gently. Isabella looked at Oliver, still diligently holding the flashlight for Marcus. Her voice dropped to barely a whisper. Alexander Thornton. Carmen's intake of breath was sharp. Thornton Energy. That Alexander Thornton. Isabella nodded miserably. Marcus straightened from the engine, his attention fully caught now. Thornton Energy was one of Houston's biggest oil companies, their logo on everything from gas stations to offshore rigs. Alexander Thornton's face was on billboards, charity galas, political fundraisers. You're married to Alexander Thornton, Carmen asked. For 8 years. Isabella's hand went to her pendant again. That's my father's company. Was anyway. Before he died and everything changed. The shop suddenly felt very small, like the walls couldn't contain a secret this big. Mother, Oliver called. Is everything okay? Everything's fine, sweetheart, Isabella managed. Keep helping Mr. Marcus. But Marcus saw the truth in her eyes. Everything was very far from fine. They'd just become involved in something that reached into Houston's highest towers, where money and power made their own rules. A black SUV cruised slowly past the shop's front windows. It might have been nothing. Houston was full of black SUVs. But Isabella went rigid, her face draining of color. Get down, she whispered urgently. Oliver, get down now. The boy didn't question, immediately dropping behind the car. Marcus moved to the window, watching the SUV continue down the street without stopping. Could be anyone, he said, but Isabella was already gathering Oliver, her movements quick and frightened. We need to go. We've put you in danger just by being here. Go where? Marcus asked. You have a plan. Money. Another place to run. Isabella's silence was answer enough. Then you stay, he said firmly. Carmen, what do we need to do legally? His sister was already typing on her phone. First, we file a protective order, document the abuse. If he's using corporate resources to track them, that's stalking across state lines, federal jurisdiction. He owns judges, Isabella said desperately. He owns police commissioners. The last person who tried to help me lost her nursing license and had to leave Texas. He doesn't own everyone, Carmen said. I know a judge newly appointed completely clean, and I have a friend at the FBI who specializes in corporate crime. The FBI? Isabella looked terrified. If Alexander Thornton is using company resources to stalk and intimidate you, that's corporate fraud on top of domestic violence. These guys always think they're untouchable, but they always make mistakes. Oliver had pressed himself against his mother's side. Is father coming? The fear in his small voice made Marcus's hands clench. He'd seen combat, seen terrible things, but something about a child's fear of his own father hit different. Not if I can help it, Marcus said, meeting Oliver's eyes. This shop, this neighborhood, we look after each other. Your father might have money, but we have something better. What? Oliver asked. We have each other. It sounded simple, maybe even naive, standing in a rundown auto shop against the power of oil money. But Marcus had learned in Afghanistan that sometimes the strongest forces were the ones nobody saw coming, the people who stood together because it was right, not because they were paid to. Isabella studied his face like she was trying to decode something. Why would you do this? You don't even know us. I know enough, Marcus said. I know you're hurt and scared. I know your boy deserves better than learning to hide from his father. That's enough. Carmen's phone buzzed. She looked at the screen and frowned. There's already a missing persons report filed. Isabella Thornton and Oliver Thornton possibly kidnapped, possibly mentally unstable and a danger to herself and her child. He's framing me, Isabella said, not surprised. It's what he does, controls the narrative. Then we need to control it better, Carmen said. Marcus, you got security cameras here. Basic system, yeah. Good. Save everything from last night. Time-stamped footage of them arriving showing her injuries. That's evidence he can't spin. The black SUV passed by again, slower this time. Marcus made a decision. Both of you upstairs. Now! He ushered them up to the apartment, Rex greeting them with a low whine, sensing the tension. The dog immediately positioned himself between Oliver and the door, protective instincts kicking in. Good boy, Oliver whispered carefully, petting Rex's head. Carmen was still strategizing. Isabella, I need you to write down everything. Every incident, every threat, every time he hurt you. Dates times witnesses, if any. We build a case so solid that even his money can't knock it down. You don't understand, Isabella said. Alexander doesn't just have money. His father built Thornton Energy from nothing, and Alexander learned every dirty trick. He has files on everyone, judges, cops, politicians. He finds what they're hiding and uses it. Then we don't play his game, Marcus said. We play ours. He pulled out his phone and started making calls. First to Mama Rosa, who ran the restaurant next door and knew everything that happened in the neighborhood. Then to Mr. Chen, whose extended family included cops who still believed in doing the right thing. Then to his old army buddy, James, who ran a security company and owed Marcus more favors than either of them could count. What are you doing? Isabella asked. Building a network. Your husband might own downtown, but this is our territory. Every shop owner, every family in this neighborhood, we've all helped each other through hard times. That creates bonds money can't buy. Within an hour, the network was active. Mama Rosa had her delivery drivers watching for suspicious vehicles. Mr. Chen's nephew, a tech specialist, started monitoring social media for any posts about Isabella and Oliver. James promised to have discreet security watching the shop by nightfall. This is incredible, Isabella said, watching the community mobilize through the apartment window. People don't even know me. They know Marcus, Carmen said. 15 years of fixing cars for free when people can't pay, helping kids with homework in the shop, teaching young men to work with their hands instead of running streets. That builds up. I still don't understand why, Isabella said. Marcus thought about how to explain it. My dad opened this shop in 1978. He was fresh back from Vietnam, had nothing but some tools and determination. This neighborhood took him in, gave him a chance. He passed that forward his whole life. When he died, he left me the shop, and one piece of advice, fix what's broken. whether it's cars or people. Oliver had been listening intently. My grandfather said something similar. He said business should make lives better, not just make money, but Father says that's naive. Your father's wrong, Marcus said simply. The boy processed this, then asked, could I learn to fix cars? If your mom says it's okay, sure. Isabella's eyes filled with tears. She quickly blinked away. Oliver's never been allowed to. Alexander said manual labor was beneath our station. Nothing honest is beneath anyone, Marcus said. The afternoon stretched on rain, finally breaking to reveal wet streets steaming in sudden sunshine. Isabella documented her injuries with Carmen's help, each photo evidence of Alexander's escalating violence. Oliver stayed with Marcus in the shop, learning to organize tools, his natural precision making him a quick study. Mr. Marcus, Oliver said suddenly, what if Father finds us? Marcus knelt to the boy's level. Then we deal with it together. But Oliver, you need to know something. Real strength isn't about hurting people. It's about protecting them. Your father might not understand that, but you can learn different. Mother says Father wasn't always mean. She says money changed him. Money changes a lot of people, but it doesn't have to change you. Oliver considered this with the gravity of someone much older. I don't want to be like him. Then you won't be. The shop door chimed and Marcus tensed, but it was just Mrs. Chen coming for her car. She took one look at Oliver wearing Marcus's too big shop shirt, and her grandmother instincts kicked in immediately. This handsome boy helping you, Marcus? She asked in her accented English. Yes, ma'am, Oliver said politely. I'm learning about transmissions. Smart boy. You hungry? I bring too much food from my son's restaurant. She produced containers that definitely hadn't been accidents. Chicken and rice very good. As Oliver ate, Mrs. Chen pulled Marcus aside. My nephew Lawrence, the one in HPD. He says Thornton's people are pushing hard, claiming kidnapping. But Lawrence also says lots of cops don't like Thornton. Too many accidents at his refineries, too many workers hurt and paid to stay quiet. Can Lawrence help? He's watching. If they come here with anything illegal, he'll know. The network was holding, but Marcus knew it was temporary. Alexander Thornton hadn't built an empire by giving up easily. As evening approached, Isabella ventured back into the shop, moving carefully around her injuries. She watched Oliver helping Marcus with an oil change, her expression soft with something that looked like hope. He's never been this relaxed, she said quietly. Even before things got bad, there was always pressure. The right schools, the right behavior, the right image. Well, kids need to be kids, Marcus said. Alexander would say that's low-class thinking. Alexander sounds like he needs a good mechanic. Isabella actually laughed, soft and surprised. What? He's running on the wrong fuel. All that hate and control, it's corrosive. Eventually it breaks down everything. She studied him with those intelligent eyes. You're not what I expected. What did you expect? I don't know. When you're desperate, you don't expect kindness. You just hope for survival. The moment stretched between them, something unspoken but understood. Then Oliver called out, Mom, look, I did it right. He'd successfully completed his first oil check dipstick, held triumphantly. That's wonderful, sweetheart, Isabella said. And for a moment, they looked like any normal family mother's son, and the mechanic teaching them both that broken things could be fixed. The black SUV returned at sunset this time, parking across the street. Marcus saw it first, his body tensing with the familiar readiness of his army days. Carmen, take them upstairs. Now. His sister didn't argue, quickly ushering Isabella and Oliver to the apartment. Rex followed, hackles raised, sensing the threat. Marcus stepped outside, wiping his hands on a shop rag, projecting casual confidence. Two men emerged from the SUV, expensive suits, incongruous in the working-class neighborhood. Private security, Marcus recognized the type ex-military or ex-cops hired to intimidate. Shop's closed, Marcus said evenly. The taller one, built like a linebacker, smiled without warmth. We're looking for someone, a woman and a boy. Someone said they might have come through here. Lots of people come through. It's a shop. This woman's special, the shorter one said, producing a photo of Isabella. She's sick, needs help. Her husband's very worried. Haven't seen her. The tall one stepped closer, just inside Marcus's personal space. You sure about that? Because Mr. Thornton rewards helpful people. and he remembers unhelpful ones. Marcus had faced down Taliban fighters and Iraqi insurgents. 2 corporate thugs didn't even raise his heart rate. Like I said, haven't seen her. The shorter one pulled out a business card. If she shows up, call this number. There's a finder's fee. $50,000. That's a lot of money, Marcus said, taking the card. Mr. Thornton values his family. They returned to the SUV, but Marcus noticed they didn't drive away. They sat there watching. He went back inside, pulling out his phone to text James. Need that security sooner rather than later. The response was immediate. 2 hours. Carmen met him at the stairs. They're rattled. Isabella's having a panic attack. Marcus found Isabella hyperventilating in the apartment's small kitchen, Oliver holding her hand, counting with her. 1, 2, 3, breathe. 1, 2, 3, breathe. Hey, Marcus said softly. They're gone. Just checking. Just fishing. They know, Isabella gasped. They always know. They suspect. That's different. And suspicion isn't proof. He knelt beside her, careful not to crowd her space. Isabella, look at me. You're not alone anymore. Those men out there, they're used to people being scared, isolated. But you've got Carmen working the legal angles, you've got the neighborhood watching, and you've got me. We're not going anywhere. Her breathing slowly steadied. Oliver kept holding her hand, and Marcus was struck again by the kid's unnatural composure. They'll come back, Isabella said. Probably, but by then we'll be ready. How can you be so calm? Marcus thought about it. In Afghanistan, my unit got pinned down in a valley. Surrounded, outgunned, everything going wrong. My sergeant, this guy from Detroit named Williams, he just started telling jokes. Bad ones. Really terrible. But it reminded us that fear only wins if you let it. We fought our way out because we stayed calm, worked together, trusted each other. This isn't a war. No, Marcus agreed. But the principles are the same. Stay calm, work together, trust each other. Isabella studied his face. I haven't trusted anyone in so long. Then maybe it's time to start. The security James promised arrived in an old pickup truck, 2 men who looked like construction workers but moved like soldiers. Marcus recognized the type operators who'd learned to blend in anywhere. They set up in subtle positions, one working on a broken-down car near the corner, another waiting for a friend at the bus stop with clear sightlines to the shop. Inside, Isabella was helping Carmen compile evidence. Each photo of a bruise, each medical record from past accidents, each threatening text message became part of a paper trail that would be hard to dispute. He was careful at first, Isabella explained, scrolling through her phone. Never hit where it would show. Never in front of witnesses, but the last year he stopped caring. What changed? Carmen asked. Isabella glanced at Oliver, who was downstairs with Marcus learning to change brake pads. My father died. William Thornton. He built the company from nothing, believed in corporate responsibility. When he was alive, Alexander had to pretend to share those values. William Thornton was your father. Carmen's eyes widened. I remember reading about his death. They said it was sudden. Heart attack, very convenient timing. Isabella's voice was bitter. He was about to restructure the company, reduce Alexander's control. He'd discovered things, environmental violations, safety shortcuts, workers paid to stay quiet about injuries. Carmen and Marcus exchanged glances. Are you saying Alexander... I can't prove anything. But my father was healthy, had just passed a full physical. Then suddenly he's dead and Alexander has full control of Thornton Energy. The implications hung heavy in the air. They weren't just dealing with domestic violence anymore. This was potentially murder corporate conspiracy, the kind of thing that powerful men killed to keep quiet. There's more, Isabella said quietly. My father left me shares. 40% of the company held in trust. Alexander can't touch them unless... She paused, swallowing hard. Unless I'm declared mentally incompetent or dead. That's why he's framing you as unstable, Carmen realized. The missing persons report mentioning mental instability. He's laying groundwork. He's done it before. My friend Jennifer, a nurse at Houston Medical. She helped me document injuries once. Within a month, she was accused of stealing drugs, lost her license, had to leave the state. Alexander made sure I knew he was behind it. Marcus felt anger building in his chest, the kind he'd learned to control but never eliminate. Men like Alexander Thornton used their power like a weapon, destroying anyone who challenged them. We need more than domestic violence charges, he said. We need to expose the whole thing. That's dangerous, Isabella warned. The last journalist who tried to investigate Thornton Energy ended up in a car accident, survived but barely. Then we be smart about it, Carmen said. I have a friend at the Houston Chronicle, Sarah Chen. She's been investigating corporate corruption for years, knows how to protect sources. No journalists, Isabella said immediately. They'll destroy her too. Not if we do this right, Marcus said. Not if we make it too big to bury. Oliver's voice drifted up from the shop, excited about successfully removing a tire. The sound of his happiness, so rare according to Isabella, strengthened Marcus's resolve. This kid deserved a chance at a normal life, not one spent running from his father's shadow. That night they ate dinner together in Marcus's small apartment takeout from Mama Rosa's, the older woman refusing payment and sending extra portions for the growing boy. Oliver sat between Marcus and Isabella Rex at his feet, looking more relaxed than Isabella had ever seen him. In my house, Oliver said suddenly, we eat in the formal dining room. Father times how long we take. Says efficiency matters in everything. Food's meant to be enjoyed, Marcus said. Take your time. Father says, Oliver stopped himself, a habit Isabella recognized. Your father's not here, she said gently. You can speak freely. Oliver looked between them, then said quietly, Father says poor people have no discipline. That's why they're poor. Marcus could see Isabella's shame, but he addressed Oliver directly. You know what makes someone rich? Oliver really rich. The boy shook his head. Having people who care about you. Having skills that help others. Having integrity nobody can buy. Your father has money, but I don't think he has any of those things. Oliver considered this seriously. He has employees. Hundreds of them. That's not the same as people who care about you. Those employees, do they seem happy? No, Oliver admitted. They're scared of him. Everyone's scared of him. Are you scared of him? Oliver's silence was answer enough. Well, Marcus said, you don't have to be scared here, neither of you do. After dinner, while Oliver played with Rex in the living room, Isabella helped Marcus clean up. Their movements in the small kitchen created a forced intimacy, her reaching around him for dishes, him steadying her when her ribs made her wince. You're good with him, she said softly. Oliver hasn't trusted an adult man since maybe ever. He's a good kid, just needs to learn it's okay to be a kid. Isabella was quiet for a moment, then said, I married Alexander when I was 24, just out of medical school. He was charming, successful, everything my father wanted for me. The abuse started small, criticism, isolation, control. By the time it became physical, I was so broken down I thought I deserved it. Nobody deserves that. I know that now. But when you're in it, when someone systematically destroys your sense of self, I was a surgeon, Marcus. I saved children's lives, but I couldn't save myself. Marcus turned to face her fully. You got out. You got Oliver out. That takes incredible strength. I should have left sooner. You left when you could. That's what matters. She looked up at him, and Marcus was struck by how small she seemed, how much damage she'd absorbed while trying to protect her son. Without thinking, he reached out and gently touched the bruise on her cheek. Isabella didn't pull away. Instead, she leaned into his touch slightly, her eyes closing. I don't even know who I am anymore, she whispered. Without the fear, without the running, who am I? You're a survivor, Marcus said. A mother, a doctor. You're Isabella, and that's enough. The moment stretched between them, fragile and important. Then Oliver called out, Mom, Rex knows how to shake hands. Isabella stepped back, the spell broken, but something had shifted, a recognition of possibility beyond mere survival. The next morning brought bad news. Carmen arrived early, her face grim. Alexander's filed for emergency custody, she said without preamble, claiming Isabella kidnapped Oliver, that she's mentally unstable and a danger to the child. Isabella sank into a chair, all color draining from her face. The hearing. Tomorrow. Judge Morrison. He's not one of the clean ones. Alexander owns him, Isabella said flatly. 3 years ago, Morrison's son was arrested for DUI, killed someone. Charges disappeared. Alexander made it happen. Then we need leverage, Marcus said. Something that makes it too costly for Morrison to just hand Alexander what he wants. Like what? Isabella asked desperately. Alexander's covered every angle. Marcus thought about it, his strategic mind working through options. Carmen, your friend at the Chronicle, what if she just happened to be at the courthouse tomorrow? With a photographer? Media attention. Carmen nodded slowly. Morrison won't want to look obviously corrupt on camera. And we packed the courtroom, Marcus added. Every person from this neighborhood who Isabella's helped since she's been here. Make it clear this isn't happening in darkness. I haven't helped anyone, Isabella protested. You checked Mrs. Chen's blood pressure yesterday, Marcus reminded her. Diagnosed Mr. Rodriguez's grandson's rash. Helped 3 different customers with medical questions while working in the shop. That's just basic. That's helping. And this neighborhood remembers who helps. They spent the day preparing. Isabella practiced her testimony with Carmen while Marcus and Oliver worked in the shop, maintaining a veneer of normalcy. But Marcus noticed the boy's tension, the way he startled at every car door slam. You scared about tomorrow? Marcus asked directly. Oliver nodded, his small hands clutching a wrench. What if the judge makes me go back? Then we keep fighting, legally properly, but we don't stop. Father always wins. Nobody always wins, Oliver, and your father's never fought people like us before. That afternoon, Alexander's lawyers arrived, 3 of them in suits that cost more than most people's cars, carrying briefcases full of documents. They walked into the shop like they owned it. Mr. Rivera, the lead lawyer said, his tone condescending. I'm James Whitman from Whitman Cross & Associates. We represent Alexander Thornton. Good for you. We're here to collect Mrs. Thornton and Oliver. We have a court order. Let me see it. The lawyer produced a document. Marcus read it carefully, his high school education supplemented by years of learning to spot bureaucratic bullshit. This is dated tomorrow, he said. It's not valid yet. The lawyer's smile was sharp. A technicality. The law's full of those, isn't it? Marcus handed the paper back. Come back tomorrow with a valid order. Mr. Rivera, you should know that harboring a kidnapper is a federal crime. And you should know that trespassing on private property is a state crime. Want me to call the cops? I'm sure they'd love to sort this out. The lawyers exchanged glances. They weren't used to resistance from people like Marcus. This isn't over, Whitman said. Never thought it was. After they left, Marcus found Isabella shaking in the office, Oliver pressed against her side. They're going to take him, she said. All their money, all their lawyers. Hey. Marcus knelt in front of them. Remember what I said about Afghanistan? About staying calm? Isabella nodded, tears streaming down her face. This is the same thing. They want you panicked, making mistakes. But we're going to be smart. We're going to be ready. And we're going to fight with everything we have. What if it's not enough? Marcus thought about all the battles he'd fought, the ones he'd won and the ones he'd lost. Then we keep fighting. That's what you do for family. Oliver looked up at him. Are we family? The question hung in the air, complex and simple at the same time. Yeah, Marcus said finally. I think we are. That evening, the neighborhood rallied. Word had spread about the custody hearing, and people started showing up at the shop. Mrs. Chen brought her entire extended family. Mama Rosa arrived with a pot of soup and a fierce expression. Mr. Rodriguez brought his fellow veterans from the VFW. Nobody messes with our people, Mama Rosa declared, her accent thick with emotion. This Isabella, she's good people. She helped my granddaughter with her science homework yesterday. Explained the digestive system like a real teacher. She diagnosed my arthritis, Mr. Chen added. Told me exactly what to tell my doctor. Saved me thousands in tests. One by one, people shared small stories of Isabella's kindness in the few days she'd been there. She'd become part of the community without realizing it, simply by being herself. Isabella stood in the center of it all, overwhelmed. I don't deserve this. That's exactly why you do deserve it, Marcus said. The black SUVs returned that night, 4 of them parking at various points around the block. Alexander wasn't taking chances. Marcus watched from the apartment window, Isabella beside him. Oliver was asleep on the couch, Rex curled protectively around him. "He's showing force," Isabella said quietly. "It's what he does. Makes sure everyone knows his reach. Let him. Tomorrow we show him what real strength looks like." Isabella turned to him in the dim light. "Why are you doing this, Marcus, really? You could have just called the police that first night, washed your hands of us." Marcus thought about how to answer. The truth was complicated, part instinct, part loneliness, part recognition of something in her and Oliver that called to everything good in him. "My dad used to say that life puts people in your path for a reason," he said finally. "That night in the storm, you didn't just need shelter. You needed someone who wouldn't let go. And maybe I needed to be needed again." Isabella reached out her hand, finding his in the darkness. "I haven't felt safe in so long I'd forgotten what it was like. But here with you, even with everything happening, I feel safe. You are safe." "That's not what I mean." She squeezed his hand. "I mean I feel safe to be myself again. To remember who I was before Alexander broke me down." "You were never broken," Marcus said. "Hurt, yes. Scared, yes. But not broken. Broken things don't protect their children the way you've protected Oliver." Isabella moved closer and Marcus could smell her shampoo, something simple from his bathroom that somehow smelled perfect on her. "When this is over," she said softly, "if we get through this." "When we get through this," Marcus corrected. "When we get through this, but," she agreed. "I want to learn to fix cars." Marcus smiled in the darkness. Yeah, I want Oliver to grow up knowing that working with your hands is honorable, that creating and fixing things matters as much as anything his father does in boardrooms." "I'd like that." They stood together watching the SUVs, hands linked, two people who'd found each other in the worst circumstances but were building something worth fighting for. The courthouse at 9 a.m. was a circus. Sarah Chen from the Chronicle was there with a photographer tipped off by Carmen. 3 other news outlets had mysteriously received word about the hearing. The courtroom was packed with Marcus's neighbors, all in their best clothes, all there to support Isabella. Alexander entered with an entourage, lawyers, assistants, bodyguards. He looked exactly like his photos, handsome in that cold corporate way, every hair-in-place suit tailored to perfection. His eyes found Isabella immediately, and the look he gave her was pure possession. "Isabella," he said smoothly, approaching with confidence, "this has gone far enough. Come home where you belong." Marcus stepped between them. "She's exactly where she belongs." Alexander looked at Marcus like he was examining something on his shoe. "And you are?" "Marcus Rivera. I own the shop where Isabella and Oliver have been staying." "The mechanic." Alexander's tone made it sound like a disease. "How much did she promise you? I'll double it to walk away." "Not everything's for sale. In my experience, everything is. It's just a matter of price." Judge Morrison entered before Marcus could respond. He was an older man with the look of someone who'd made too many compromises. His eyes avoided the media cameras. The hearing began with Alexander's lawyers painting Isabella as unstable a danger to Oliver. They had documents, carefully edited medical records suggesting mental illness reports from household staff about erratic behavior. Even a psychiatrist who'd never met Isabella testifying via affidavit about probable diagnoses. Isabella sat rigid beside Carmen, her hands clenched so tight her knuckles were white. Oliver wasn't in the courtroom. Carmen had arranged for him to stay with child services during the hearing's standard procedure, but still terrifying. Then it was their turn. Carmen stood 5 feet 2 inches of legal fury. "Your Honor, we'd like to present evidence of systematic domestic abuse spanning 8 years. She began with the photos, each injury documented and dated. Then the medical records Isabella had hidden. Emergency room visits. Alexander didn't know about x-rays showing healed fractures, a pattern of escalating violence. "Objection," Alexander's lawyer said. "These could be from anything. Mrs. Thornton is known to be clumsy." "Clumsy?" Carmen repeated flatly. "Right. So clumsy she has defensive wounds on her arms, so clumsy she has bruises in the shape of fingers around her throat." She called her first witness, Dr. Patricia Ramirez from Houston Medical, who treated Isabella secretly 3 times. "The injuries were consistent with domestic violence," Dr. Ramirez testified. Mrs. Thornton begged me not to report it. She was terrified of her husband. Alexander's lawyers attacked her credibility, but Dr. Ramirez held firm. Then came character witnesses. Mrs. Chen testified about Isabella's kindness and medical knowledge. Mama Rosa spoke about seeing Isabella help everyone despite her own pain. Even crusty Mr. Rodriguez stood up and said Isabella was good people and Alexander was corporate scum. Judge Morrison looked increasingly uncomfortable as the community support became obvious. The cameras were rolling, and he knew it. Alexander himself took the stand, all smooth confidence and wounded husband act. "I'm concerned for my wife's mental health," he said, managing to look caring. "She's been paranoid, making wild accusations. I just want her to get help." "These wild accusations," Carmen said on cross-examination. "You mean the domestic violence?" "That never happened." Carmen pulled out her phone. "Your Honor, I'd like to play a recording." Alexander's lawyers objected, but Morrison, aware of the cameras, allowed it. Isabella's voice filled the courtroom, recorded on a hidden phone during one of Alexander's rages. His voice was clear, threatening, followed by the sound of impact, and Isabella's cry of pain. The courtroom was dead silent. Alexander's composure cracked. "That's taken out of context." "What context makes threatening to kill your wife acceptable?" Carmen asked. "I never, Carmen played another recording, Alexander's voice cold and clear. "If you ever try to leave me, I'll kill you and make it look like suicide. Who would doubt it? Everyone knows you're unstable." The media was furiously taking notes. Alexander's lawyers were whispering urgently. Then Isabella took the stand. She spoke quietly but clearly, describing years of abuse, isolation, control. She talked about Oliver witnessing violence, about her father's suspicious death, about the systematic destruction of anyone who tried to help her. "Why didn't you leave sooner?" Alexander's lawyer asked, trying to salvage something. "Where would I go? He controlled our finances, had me followed, threatened anyone who helped me. He owns judges, police, media. He made sure I knew there was no escape. Yet you're here now." "Yes." Isabella looked directly at Alexander. "Because I finally found people he couldn't buy or threaten. People who stood up to him because it was right, not because they were paid to." Judge Morrison looked between the packed courtroom, the media cameras, and Alexander's increasingly angry face. Whatever Alexander had on him, it wasn't worth the public destruction of his reputation. "Based on the evidence presented," Morrison said carefully, "I'm denying the emergency custody request and issuing a temporary restraining order against Mr. Thornton. A full custody hearing will be scheduled for next month." The courtroom erupted. Alexander shot to his feet, rage replacing his composed mask. "You can't do this," he shouted at Morrison. "You know what I know." Morrison's face went pale, but he held firm. "Mr. Thornton, you're in contempt. Bailiff." Alexander stormed out before he could be arrested, his lawyers scrambling to follow. Isabella collapsed into Marcus's arms, sobbing with relief. Around them, their community celebrated, but Marcus kept his eyes on the door Alexander had exited through. This wasn't over. Men like Alexander Thornton didn't accept defeat. They just changed tactics. The victory at the courthouse lasted exactly 6 hours. Marcus was teaching Oliver how to check tire pressure when his phone rang. Carmen's voice was tight with panic. "They've frozen Isabella's medical license. Some anonymous complaint about mental instability and drug abuse. The Texas Medical Board just suspended her pending investigation." Isabella, who'd been organizing the shop's inventory system, dropped the clipboard she was holding. She'd heard enough. "He's destroying my career," she said numbly. "Even if I win custody, I'll have no way to support Oliver." "We'll fight it," Marcus said immediately. "With what money? Alexander has unlimited resources. I have nothing." "You have us." But even as he said it, Marcus knew they were entering dangerous territory. Alexander had been humiliated in court, and his response would be swift and vicious. That night, Oliver couldn't sleep. Marcus found him sitting on the apartment's fire escape, looking out at Houston's skyline, where Thornton Energy's towers dominated the view. "My grandfather built those," Oliver said quietly. "He used to take me to the top floor, show me the city. He said business was about building things that lasted." Marcus sat beside him, the metal grating cold through his jeans. "Tell me about your grandfather." "William Thornton." Everyone called him Will. He was different from Father. He'd shake hands with janitors, knew everyone's names. He started with one oil rig in the Gulf, built everything himself. He sounds like a good man. Father hated him. Oliver's voice was matter of fact. They'd fight about the company. Grandfather wanted to invest in renewable energy cleaner drilling. Father said it was weak thinking. What do you think? Oliver was quiet for a long moment. I think Grandfather was right. He gave me something before he died. Said to keep it secret from Father. The boy pulled out a small USB drive on a chain around his neck, hidden under his shirt. He said it was insurance, that if anything happened to him, I should give it to someone Father couldn't buy. Marcus's pulse quickened. Have you looked at what's on it? I don't have the password. Grandfather said I'd know it when I was ready. Before Marcus could respond, glass shattered in the shop below. Then came the smoke alarm, followed by the acrid smell of gasoline. Fire! Marcus grabbed Oliver, rushing him inside. Isabella, get out now! They evacuated down the exterior stairs as flames began licking through the shop's windows. Rex bounded ahead, barking frantically. Isabella grabbed their few possessions while Marcus called 911. The fire department arrived quickly, but the damage was done. The shop's interior was destroyed tools. Melted diagnostic equipment ruined years of work, reduced to ash and twisted metal. Accelerant, the fire chief told Marcus. Gasoline. This was arson. You'll investigate. The chief looked uncomfortable. We'll file a report. But without witnesses, he didn't need to finish. Everyone knew Thornton Energy donated heavily to the fire department's pension fund. They stood in the street watching firefighters douse the last flames. Everything Marcus had built his father's legacy gone in minutes. This is my fault, Isabella said, tears cutting through the soot on her face. I brought this to you. No, Marcus said firmly. Alexander did this, not you. Mr. Chen appeared with blankets and his grandson Tommy, who worked in IT. You stay with us tonight, he insisted. Tomorrow, we rebuild. With what? Marcus asked, gesturing at the destroyed shop. Insurance will take months if they pay at all. With this, Mama Rosa said, appearing with a coffee can. Collection from the neighborhood, we take care of our own. More neighbors arrived, each bringing something money tools that had been borrowed and never returned offers of labor. The community that had watched Marcus help others for 15 years was paying it back. This is just the beginning, Oliver said quietly to Marcus. Father always says the first strike is to show you're serious. The second is to destroy you. The second strike came at dawn. Carmen arrived at Mr. Chen's house pale and shaking. There's a warrant for Isabella's arrest. Embezzlement from Thornton Energy. They're saying she stole $3 million from corporate accounts. That's insane, Isabella protested. I never had access to those accounts. They have documents with your digital signature transfers to an offshore account in your name. Fabricated, Marcus said immediately. Of course, but proving that takes time. And if she's arrested, Alexander gets emergency custody of Oliver, Isabella finished. He wins. They had minutes to decide. Police sirens were already approaching. Tommy. Marcus turned to Mr. Chen's grandson. That USB drive Oliver has, can you crack it? Maybe, but I'd need time. Then buy us time. Marcus grabbed his phone, calling Sarah Chen at the Chronicle. How fast can you get here with a camera crew? 20 minutes? Make it 10. When the police arrived, they found Isabella sitting calmly at Mr. Chen's kitchen table, being interviewed by Sarah Chen while cameras rolled. The arrest would be public documented, impossible to bury. Mrs. Thornton, the lead officer said, uncomfortably aware of the cameras. We have a warrant for your arrest. On what charges? Carmen demanded, legal pad ready. Embezzlement, fraud, theft of corporate assets. Based on what evidence? The officer looked increasingly uncomfortable as Carmen grilled him on camera, but they still had to make the arrest. As Isabella was handcuffed, she looked directly at the camera. My name is Isabella Thornton. My husband, Alexander Thornton, is framing me for embezzlement because I reported his domestic violence. This is what happens when you stand up to powerful men in Houston. The footage was online within an hour, viral within 3. Marcus kept Oliver close as they watched Isabella being driven away. The boy stood rigid, his grandfather's USB drive clutched in his hand. "We need to get into that drive," Marcus said to Tommy. "It might be the only thing that can save her." Tommy set up his equipment in Mr. Chen's basement, multiple computers humming as he worked on cracking the encryption. Oliver sat beside him, suggesting passwords, birthdays, anniversaries, company milestones. Nothing worked. "It would be something only you would know," Tommy said. "Something personal between you and your grandfather." Oliver thought hard, then suddenly brightened. "The derricks." "What?" "Grandfather used to tell me stories about the first oil derricks. He'd say, 'From depths to heights, Oliver. Remember that. We rise from where we dig deep.'" "From depths to heights," Tommy typed. "That's the company motto." The screen unlocked. Files flooded the display, financial records, emails, recorded conversations. William Thornton had documented everything: Alexander's embezzlement, the safety violations that killed workers, bribes to officials, and most damning conversations about eliminating William himself. "Your grandfather knew," Marcus said softly. "He knew Alexander was planning something." One file was labeled "For Oliver." They opened it to find a video of William Thornton recorded weeks before his death. "Oliver." His grandfather's voice filled the room. "If you're watching this, it means Alexander has shown his true nature. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you and your mother better, but I've left you tools to fight back." The video detailed hidden accounts Alexander didn't know about, shares in the company, held in blind trusts, and evidence of every crime Alexander had committed. "Your mother is a good woman," William continued. "Alexander fooled us all at first, but she deserves better. So do you. The company I built was meant to provide energy to the world, not destroy lives for profit. Help your mother rebuild it correctly." Oliver was crying silently, seeing his grandfather again, hearing confirmation that someone else had seen what he'd seen. "There's more," Tommy said, scrolling through files. "Medical records. William Thornton was poisoned. Small doses of digitalis over months, making his heart condition worse." "Alexander killed him," Marcus said flatly, "and we can prove it." While Tommy compiled the evidence, Marcus worked his network. James's security team took shifts watching Oliver. Carmen filed motion after motion, buying time in the legal system. Sarah Chen prepared a massive expose with the Chronicle. But they needed Isabella out of jail to use any of it. The bail hearing was set for the next morning. Alexander would be there, his lawyers ready to argue she was a flight risk. The judge was one Alexander had definitely bought. No amount of media attention would change that. Marcus sold everything he had left: his truck, his father's tool collection, even his army medals. Combined with the neighborhood collection, they had almost enough for bail. Almost. "It's 50,000 short," Carmen said desperately. Judge set it at $500,000. Marcus was about to despair when Nicholas Thornton walked into Mr. Chen's house. Alexander's younger brother looked terrible, hollow-eyed, unshaven, carrying himself like a man approaching the gallows. "I have something to say," he announced to the room of suspicious faces. Marcus stood ready to throw him out, but Nicholas held up his hands. "I know what my brother is. I've always known. I've been a coward taking his money, staying quiet. But William," his voice cracked, "William was like a father to me too. And Alexander killed him." "You know this?" Carmen asked sharply. "I suspected. Now with everything happening, I'm certain." Nicholas pulled out a checkbook. 50,000 for Isabella's bail, and my testimony about Alexander's crimes." "Why?" Marcus asked. "Why now?" Nicholas looked at Oliver. "Because that boy deserves better than growing up like Alexander and I did, poisoned by greed, and taught that power means crushing others. William saw it happening and tried to stop it. I owe him this much." They made bail with minutes to spare. Isabella walked out of jail into a crowd of supporters and media. Alexander was there, his face twisted with rage, as his perfectly controlled world continued to crumble. "This isn't over," he snarled at Marcus. "No," Marcus agreed. "It's just beginning." That night they gathered in Mama Rosa's restaurant, the only safe place left. Isabella held Oliver close while reviewing the evidence from William's USB drive. Her tears fell freely as she watched her father's video, heard him apologize for not protecting her better. He knew, she kept saying. He knew and tried to stop it. And now we finish what he started, Marcus said. She looked at him across the table, this mechanic who'd lost everything protecting her and Oliver. I can't ask you to do more. You're not asking, I'm choosing, Carmen interrupted with urgent news. Emergency board meeting tomorrow. Alexander's trying to force through a vote to remove Isabella's shares based on the embezzlement charges. Can he do that? If he has the board's support, which he's buying as we speak. Isabella stood William Thornton's daughter in every line of her body. Then we crash the meeting. It's a closed session. Not to a 40% shareholder, it's not. She turned to Nicholas. You still have your shares, 15%. Combined, we have 55%. We can call our own vote. Vote on what? Carmen asked. Isabella smiled, and it was sharp as a blade. Removing Alexander as CEO and investigating every crime he's committed in the company's name. The plan was dangerous. Alexander would have security, would have lawyers, would have every weapon money could buy. But they had something else, truth, evidence, and a growing army of people Alexander had wronged. Tomorrow, Isabella said, looking at each of them. Tomorrow, we take back my father's company. Marcus thought about his destroyed shop, about everything he'd lost. Then he looked at Oliver, brave and brilliant, and Isabella, fierce and unbroken, despite everything. Some things were worth any price. The third strike came at 3 a.m. Marcus woke to Rex growling, then gunshots. The windows of Mama Rosa's restaurant exploded in a shower of glass. Professional suppressed weapons, not street guns. Oliver, Isabella screamed. Marcus found them pulling both under a table as more shots perforated the walls. His military training kicked in, counting shooters, tracking angles, looking for exits. Kitchen door, so he said. Stay low. They crawled through broken glass, Rex leading the way. Behind them, boots on broken glass. Alexander wasn't using lawyers anymore. The kitchen's back door opened onto an alley. Marcus's car, borrowed from James, was parked there. They almost made it when a figure stepped from the shadows. Not a gunman. Tommy Chen holding a laptop. This way, he hissed. I've been monitoring police channels. Alexander's people are jamming them, but I've got a clear signal to stream everything. Stream what? Tommy held up his phone, already recording. This. Alexander Thornton hiring mercenaries to kill his wife and son. Lived to 20,000 viewers and climbing. The shooters rounded the corner and stopped seeing the camera. In today's world, even killers feared going viral. Fall back, one said into his radio. Abort. They melted into the night, but the damage was done. Mama Rosa's restaurant was destroyed, and the message was clear. Alexander would kill them all before giving up power. The board meeting, Isabella said. He's trying to stop us from getting there. Then we make sure everyone knows why, Marcus said. He turned to Tommy. Can you stream the whole thing? Give me 10 minutes and decent Wi-Fi. Dawn came with Houston holding its breath. The attempted assassination was all over the news. Hester Thornton Crimes was trending globally. The FBI had finally taken notice, agents arriving at the scene. But the board meeting would still happen. Corporate law didn't stop for attempted murder. Marcus dressed in his only remaining suit salvaged from what was left of his apartment. Isabella wore a simple black dress Carmen had bought professional, but not trying to compete with Alexander's money. Oliver insisted on coming wearing his grandfather's cufflinks Nicholas had brought him. You sure about this? Marcus asked Isabella as they prepared to enter Thornton Energy's headquarters. My father built this company to power cities and create jobs. Alexander turned it into a weapon. Yes, I'm sure. The building's lobby was packed with media. Alexander had tried to bar them, but Sarah Chen had a court order, public interest in a publicly traded company. Every major outlet was there. Alexander stood at the elevator banks with his security, his handsome face ugly with rage. You're not getting up there. Actually, we are. A familiar voice came from behind them. James Marcus's army buddy stood with a full team of federal marshals. FBI is very interested in this meeting. Corporate fraud, attempted murder, interstate commerce violations. We'll be escorting Mrs. Thornton. Alexander's face went white. His lawyers whispered urgently, but there was nothing they could do. Federal authority trumped corporate security. The boardroom was on the 40th floor, all glass and mahogany and corporate power. The board members, 12 aging white men who'd rubber-stamped Alexander's decisions for years, sat nervously as FBI agents took positions around the room. "This is illegal," Alexander started. "No," Isabella said, taking her father's seat at the table. "This is justice." She placed William's USB drive on the table. "Gentlemen, I have here evidence of systematic fraud, murder, and embezzlement committed by Alexander Thornton. You have two choices: vote to remove him and cooperate with authorities, or go down with him." One by one, she played the recordings. Alexander discussing killing William, bragging about bribing judges, planning the cover-up of worker deaths. The board members' faces went from nervous to horrified as they realized their own complicity. "You all knew," Isabella said quietly. "Maybe not everything, but enough. You chose profits over lives, power over principles. My father would be ashamed." Nicholas stood. "I motion to remove Alexander Thornton as CEO and appoint Isabella Thornton as interim director pending a full investigation." "Seconded," said one board member, quickly seeing which way the wind was blowing. The vote was unanimous except for Alexander, who sat frozen as his empire crumbled. "You can't do this, what?" he said, but his voice lacked its usual force. "I own this company." "No," Oliver said, speaking for the first time. "Grandfather built this company. You just stole it." FBI agents moved forward. "Alexander Thornton, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, corporate fraud, embezzlement." The list went on. Alexander looked at Isabella as handcuffs clicked around his wrists. The same helpless fury she'd seen so many times now directed impotently at her. "This isn't over," he said. "Yes?" Isabella replied simply. "It is." As they led Alexander away, Oliver moved to the window, looking out at the city his grandfather had helped power. Marcus joined him, placing a protective hand on the boy's shoulder. "What happens now?" Oliver asked. "Now we rebuild," Isabella said, joining them. "The company, our lives, everything Alexander destroyed. Together." Oliver looked between his mother and Marcus. Marcus met Isabella's eyes over Oliver's head. They'd been through hell, lost everything, found each other. Whatever came next, they'd face it as a family. "Together," Marcus confirmed. "The FBI raid on Thornton Energy happened at dawn 3 days after Alexander's arrest. Agents carried out boxes of documents while news helicopters circled overhead." Isabella stood in what had been Alexander's office, now stripped of his vanity photographs and trophy displays, watching the city wake up to a new reality. "The board wants to talk," Nicholas said from the doorway. He'd been helping investigators, providing passwords and explaining Alexander's network of corruption. "They're scared. They should be." Marcus entered with coffee and Oliver, who'd insisted on coming to the office every day since his father's arrest. The boy was documenting everything with a composition notebook, his way of processing the chaos. 43 shell companies, Oliver read from his notes. 16 offshore accounts, 9 officials on the payroll. "Your grandfather would be proud," Isabella said. "You're doing what he did, keeping records, finding truth." The interim board meeting was tense. The remaining members, those not arrested in the FBI sweep, sat like condemned men awaiting sentencing. "Thornton Energy is facing bankruptcy," the CFO reported. "Lawsuits from injured workers, environmental violations, the FBI asset freeze. We have maybe 3 months of operating capital." "Then we have 3 months to save it," Isabella said. "Save it." Board member Harrison laughed bitterly. "The company's reputation is destroyed. The company's reputation was built on lies. We'll rebuild it on truth." She outlined her plan: full cooperation with authorities, compensation for all victims, and a radical restructuring toward renewable energy, her father's original vision before Alexander corrupted it. "That's corporate suicide," another member protested. "No," Marcus said from his position by the window. "That's corporate redemption." The vote was close, but Isabella's plan passed. She was officially CEO of a company on the brink of collapse, with her abusers' allies still embedded throughout the organization. That night in the apartment Carmen had helped them rent, Isabella collapsed on the couch. The weight of everything, the trial preparation, the company crisis, the constant security concerns, was crushing. "I don't know if I can do this," she admitted to Marcus. He sat beside her, Rex settling at their feet. Oliver was in his room, finally sleeping peacefully for the first time in weeks. "You remember that first night?" Marcus asked. "You showed up beaten, terrified, with nothing but Oliver and the clothes on your backs. How could I forget? Look where you are now. You faced down Alexander, exposed his crimes, took back your father's company. You've already done the impossible." Isabella leaned against his shoulder, allowing herself this moment of vulnerability. "I couldn't have done any of it without you." "Sure you could have. Might have taken longer, but you'd have found a way. You're the strongest person I know." She turned to look at him, their faces close in the lamplight. "Marcus, when this is over, when things are stable." "I know," he said softly. "Me too." The kiss was gentle, a promise of possibilities once the storms passed. The first assassination attempt had been violent. The second was subtle. Isabella had been reviewing contracts in her office when she started feeling dizzy. Her vision blurred, her heart racing irregularly. If Nicholas hadn't walked in and recognized the symptoms, the same ones William had experienced, she might have died at her desk. Digitalis poisoning. The hospital confirmed. In her coffee. Same method used on William Thornton. Marcus stood guard at her hospital bed while FBI agents swept the office. They found the source, a new assistant hired just days ago, who'd disappeared after delivering the poisoned coffee. "Alexander has people everywhere," Nicholas said grimly. "Even from prison, he's reaching out." Oliver sat by his mother's bed, holding her hand with fierce determination. "We need to stop him permanently." "We need to prove he ordered it," Carmen corrected, ever the legal mind. "Otherwise, it's just another employee acting alone." The proof came from an unexpected source. One of Alexander's cellmates, looking for a deal on his own charges, had recorded Alexander arranging the hit. He'd used a contraband phone to contact old associates, promising payments from hidden accounts the FBI hadn't found. The recording was damning. Alexander's voice cold and clear. "Killer. Make it look natural. The boy too, if possible." Even Marcus, who'd seen humanity's worst in war, was shaken by the casual evil in ordering the death of his own son. The federal prosecutor added attempted murder to Alexander's charges. No possibility of bail now. But the damage to Isabella was done. The poison had weakened her heart, requiring weeks of recovery. She ran the company from her hospital bed, Marcus coordinating between her and the office, Oliver doing homework beside her, absorbing business lessons between math problems. "The refinery workers are protesting," Nicholas reported during one visit. "They think you're going to shut everything down, cost them their jobs." "Then we need to talk to them," Isabella said. Against doctor's orders, she checked herself out for one day. Marcus drove her to the main refinery where hundreds of workers had gathered. These were the people Alexander had poisoned with toxic conditions, then threatened into silence. Now they feared Isabella would abandon them entirely. She stood before them, still weak but determined, and spoke from the heart. "My father built this company with his own hands. He believed energy work was noble work. Alexander corrupted that, turned you into expendable resources. I'm here to promise you something different." She outlined her plan. Retrofitting refineries for cleaner processing, retraining programs for renewable energy sectors, and most importantly, full health care for every worker and their families, including treatment for all work-related illnesses. "Alexander made you choose between your health and your paycheck," she said. "I'm eliminating that choice. You'll have both, or I'll shut it all down and start over." The crowd was skeptical until an older worker, Miguel Valdez, stepped forward. "I knew your father. He gave me my first job 30 years ago. You have his eyes." He extended his hand. "We'll give you a chance." The handshake photo, Isabella, frail but fierce, clasping hands with a worker whose own hands bore the scars of decades of labor, became iconic. It ran on front pages with headlines about corporate redemption. But redemption came with a price. The company was hemorrhaging money. Lawsuits, cleanup costs, and victim compensation were draining accounts faster than revenue could refill them. Isabella needed investors, but Thornton Energy was toxic to anyone with money. "There is one option," Nicholas said during an emergency meeting: "the reserve accounts." "What reserve accounts?" "Father set them aside off the official books. For emergencies only. Alexander never knew about them. I only know because I helped Father hide them from the IRS." "That's illegal," Carmen pointed out. So was everything else Alexander did, Nicholas countered. These accounts have nearly 50 million, enough to keep us afloat while we restructure. Isabella wrestled with the decision. Using hidden money felt like perpetuating Alexander's methods, but without it, the company would collapse, taking thousands of jobs with it. We use it, she decided, but we also report it to the IRS, pay the penalties, make it clean. No more secrets. The decision cost another 10 million in penalties and back taxes, but it established something Alexander had never had: credibility. The FBI noted the voluntary disclosure. The media praised the transparency. Workers saw a CEO willing to pay for her father's mistakes rather than hide them. Slowly, things began to turn around. A tech billionaire, impressed by Isabella's integrity, invested 20 million in the renewable energy division. A federal grant for environmental cleanup added another 30 million. The stock price, which had cratered after Alexander's arrest, began climbing. Marcus reopened his shop with insurance money and community support. It was smaller, simpler, but clean and honest. Oliver spent afternoons there, learning the mechanical skills Alexander had forbidden, discovering he had his grandfather's gift for understanding how things worked. "I want to build things," Oliver announced one evening, "like Grandpa Will did, but clean things, solar panels and wind turbines." "Then that's what you'll do," Isabella said, ruffling his hair. They'd established a new routine. Marcus and Isabella weren't officially together. She needed time to heal from 8 years of abuse, but they operated as partners, co-parents to Oliver, rebuilding their lives in parallel. The trial date was set for spring. Alexander faced 47 federal charges. His lawyers were pushing for a plea deal, but Isabella refused any agreement that didn't include a full confession. "He needs to admit what he did," she told the prosecutor. "To my father, to me, to Oliver. No sealed records, no private agreements, public accountability." Alexander's response came through his lawyer. He would confess to everything if Isabella agreed to one meeting alone, no recordings. "Absolutely not," Marcus said immediately. "It's the only way," Isabella argued. "Without his confession, the trial could drag on for years. He tried to kill you, twice. He'll be shackled, guards present. I need to face him one last time, Marcus. I need him to see he didn't break me." The meeting was arranged at the Federal Detention Center. Isabella entered the sterile room where Alexander waited, orange jumpsuit replacing his expensive suits, handcuffs replacing his Rolex. He looked smaller, older, his carefully maintained appearance crumbling without his team of stylists and trainers. "Isabella," he said, trying for his old commanding tone, but achieving only hollow bravado. She sat across from him, steady and calm. "Alexander, you've destroyed everything." "No, you destroyed everything. I'm just cleaning up the mess." His face contorted. "That company was mine. I earned it." "You stole it. From my father, from the workers, from everyone who believed in what it could be. Your father was weak. His renewable energy dreams would have bankrupted us." Isabella pulled out a folder. "Actually, I ran the numbers. His renewable plan would have made Thornton Energy the industry leader within a decade. You killed him out of greed, not business sense." For the first time, Alexander's mask completely dropped. "He was going to cut me out. After everything I'd done, he was going to leave control to you. So you poisoned him. He was old anyway." The casual admission hit Isabella like a physical blow, but she didn't flinch. "And me? What was your excuse for the abuse?" "You needed to learn your place." "My place," Isabella repeated. "And where was that?" "Beneath me, supporting me, silent." She stood looking down at the man who'd terrorized her for 8 years. "My place is running the company you tried to steal. My place is raising Oliver to be everything you're not. My place is free." "This isn't over," Alexander called as she walked to the door. "I have appeals connections. Your connections are being arrested or running scared. Your money is frozen. Your reputation is destroyed. It's over, Alexander. You're over." She left him there raging at guards who didn't care, finally as powerless as he'd made her feel for so long. The confession came 2 days later, detailed and damning. Alexander admitted to murdering William, abusing Isabella, embezzling funds, bribing officials, and ordering the deaths of witnesses. In exchange, life in prison instead of the death penalty. It's done, Isabella told Marcus and Oliver that evening. He'll never hurt anyone again. Oliver hugged her tightly. Can we be a normal family now? Isabella looked at Marcus over Oliver's head. They weren't a normal family, might never be. But they were their family forged in crisis and strengthened by survival. We can be our family, she said. That's better than normal. 1 year later, Marcus stood in the rebuilt shop watching Oliver teach a younger kid how to change oil. The boy had grown 3 inches, his movements confident where they'd once been fearful. Through the window, Marcus could see the new sign, Rivera and Thornton, Automotive Honest Work, Fair Prices. Isabella had insisted on adding her name after the divorce finalized a statement that she wasn't running from who she'd been, but building on who she'd become. The lawyers are here, she said, entering from the office where she'd been reviewing contracts. She split her time now, mornings at Thornton Energy, afternoons at the shop, evenings as a family. The lawyers brought news that would change everything. Alexander Thornton was found dead in his cell this morning, the lead attorney said carefully. Apparent suicide. Isabella sank into a chair, her face unreadable. Oliver stopped his lesson, moving instinctively to his mother's side. He left a note. The lawyer continued, producing a sealed envelope. Isabella's hands trembled as she opened it. Alexander's handwriting, once commanding on corporate documents, looked shaky. Isabella. You won. I spent months planning revenge, but the truth is simpler. You were stronger. William saw it. That's why he chose you. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I know what I am. Was. Tell Oliver I'm sorry I couldn't be the father he deserved. The Cayman account 447B-QZ9 has $12 million I hid from everyone. It's his. My only clean money inherited from my mother before I became what I became. I don't want his money, Oliver said immediately. It's your choice, Isabella said. But maybe we could use it for something good, something that would have made Grandpa Will proud. They used it to establish the William Thornton Foundation for Worker Safety, providing free medical care to energy workers and their families. The irony wasn't lost on anyone, Alexander's hidden fortune healing the wounds he'd inflicted. Thornton Energy's transformation was remarkable. The company that had symbolized corporate corruption became a model for ethical business. The renewable division grew by 300%. Stock prices reached record highs. Workers who'd once feared for their lives now had the best safety record in the industry. You did it, Nicholas said at the shareholders' meeting where Isabella was officially confirmed as permanent CEO. You saved Father's legacy. We did it, Isabella corrected, looking at Marcus in the crowd. All of us. The wedding was small, held in the shop where they'd first met. Mama Rosa cooked, Mr. Chen decorated, and Oliver served as both ring bearer and best man. Isabella wore a simple white dress, Marcus his army dress uniform he'd thought he'd never wear again. 2 years ago you showed up at my door broken and afraid, Marcus said in his vows. You taught me that strength isn't about never falling, it's about getting up again and again until standing becomes natural. You gave me shelter when I had nothing, Isabella replied. But more than that, you gave me hope when I'd forgotten it existed. You showed Oliver what a real father looks like. When the judge pronounced them married, Oliver cheered loudest of all. The reception revealed one last surprise. Tommy Chen had been investigating the USB drive further and found an encrypted folder labeled "For the Right Moment." Inside was a video from William Thornton dated just days before his death. If you're watching this, William said, his face kind but tired, it means Isabella and Oliver are safe from Alexander. I knew what he was planning, the poison is already in my system, but I also knew my daughter was stronger than he could imagine. Isabella gasped, gripping Marcus's hand. William continued, I'm choosing my death on my terms, denying Alexander the satisfaction while ensuring evidence of his crimes. Isabella, you were always meant to run this company. Your compassion, your medical training, your understanding of human cost, that's what Thornton Energy needed. He smiled, looking directly at the camera. I've watched you, Marcus Rivera. Your father and I served in Vietnam together, different units, but the same war. He saved my life once in a village outside Da Nang. I've been watching his son, waiting for the right moment to repay that debt. When Isabella needed shelter, I knew she'd find her way to you. Call it fate or planning, sometimes they're the same thing. The room was silent, everyone absorbing this final revelation. Take care of them, Marcus, William concluded. And Isabella Oliver live freely, love deeply, and remember that power means nothing without purpose. The company, the money, it's all just tools. Family is the only real fortune. The video ended, leaving them with the truth. Their meeting wasn't chance, but destiny, orchestrated by a dying man determined to save his daughter and grandson from beyond the grave. 5 years passed. Oliver, now 13, won the state science fair with a revolutionary design for solar panel efficiency. He was tall like his biological father, but kind like the man who'd raised him. MIT wants to meet with him, Isabella said, reviewing the letter. Early admission program. He's too young, Marcus protested. I was young when I started medical school, Isabella reminded him. But you're right, let him be a kid first. They'd had 2 more children, twins, Sarah and William, now 3 years old, and currently dismantling a toy car under Oliver's supervision. No will that piece goes here, Oliver explained patiently. See like in Dad's shop. The word Dad still made Marcus's chest tight with emotion. Oliver had started using it naturally about a year after the wedding, no discussion needed. Thornton Energy had become the largest renewable energy company in America. Isabella had kept her promise, every worker protected, every community cleaned up, every debt paid. The company William built had finally become what he'd envisioned. There's something else, Isabella said, holding another envelope. From the FBI, they finished investigating Alexander's network. The report was comprehensive. Alexander's corruption had reached into dozens of companies, hundreds of officials, all of it unraveled by Isabella's courage and Marcus's protection. It's really over, she said softly. No, Marcus corrected, pulling her close while the kids played. It's really beginning. That evening, they stood in the shop where it all started. The bullet holes from the attack had been repaired but not erased. Marcus believed in remembering where you came from. Do you ever think about if I hadn't opened that door? Marcus asked. Isabella smiled. Your father would have haunted you. Mine would have haunted me. They conspired across death to bring us together. Conspiracy theorist, he teased. Mechanic, she shot back. CEO. Dad? Oliver called. Mom, the twins got into the oil again. They rushed to contain the chaos, finding Sarah and Will covered in motor oil, grinning with achievement. They're definitely your kids, Isabella laughed. Pretty sure the destruction is from your side. Marcus countered, catching Will before he could spread oil to the clean tools. Later, after baths and bedtime stories, Marcus and Isabella sat on the apartment's fire escape looking out at Houston's lights. The Thornton Energy towers still dominated the skyline, but now they were lit with solar power beacons of change rather than corruption. Your father was right, Marcus said. Family is the only real fortune. Isabella leaned against him, watching the city sleep. Then we're the richest people in Houston. In the world, Marcus corrected. Somewhere in the city, other desperate people were running from their own Alexanders. Some would find their own versions of Marcus, their own paths to freedom. The shop had become something of a legend in certain circles, the place where a beaten woman and her son had found shelter and brought down an empire. They still got visitors sometimes, usually at night, always desperate. Isabella would treat their injuries while Marcus found them safe places to stay. Oliver would play with their children, teaching them that fathers weren't supposed to be scary. They'd saved 17 families so far, their own underground railroad of domestic violence survivors. We should expand, Isabella said suddenly. Create a network of safe places. Mechanic shops, diners, places abusers wouldn't think to look. The William Thornton Network, Marcus suggested. The Rivera Thornton Foundation, Isabella corrected. Your father saved mine in Vietnam. Mine saved us through his planning. It's both their legacies. Marcus kissed her forehead. Let's do it. A year later, the network had 37 locations across Texas. Each one a legitimate business that also served as a safe house, staffed by people who understood that sometimes salvation came at 3 a.m, bleeding and afraid. Oliver, now 15, and already taking college courses, designed the security systems. His MIT acceptance had come with a full scholarship, but he'd deferred choosing to finish high school normally. I want to help more families first, he'd explained. College will wait. The twins were holy terrors taking after both parents in the best ways. Sarah had Isabella's intensity and Marcus's hands-on approach, constantly taking apart and rebuilding everything she could reach. Will had Marcus's calm and Isabella's strategic mind planning elaborate schemes that his sister executed. "We're going to have our hands full," Marcus said, watching Will convince Sarah to help him build a better television. "We already do." Isabella laughed, very obviously pregnant with their fourth child. "When were you going to tell me?" Marcus asked, stunned. "Tonight." But the twins' chaos seemed like the perfect backdrop. He pulled her close, careful of her growing belly. Another one, due in spring. "We're going to need a bigger apartment. Or a house. There's one for sale near the shop. Big yard, good school space for a home office." Marcus pictured it, a real house filled with their children's laughter, maybe a dog for Rex's companion in his old age. The life he'd never imagined when he was a lonely mechanic living above his shop. "Let's look tomorrow," he said. That night Alexander's ghost felt particularly absent. For so long his shadow had hung over them even after his death. But now, surrounded by family and purpose, his memory had faded to nothing more than a cautionary tale. The shop's emergency phone rang at 2 a.m. Marcus answered to find a woman's terrified voice, a child crying in the background. "Someone said you could help," she whispered. "He's coming. I don't have much time." "We're at 4782 Westheimer," Marcus said calmly. "Back door will be open. Come now." He woke Isabella gently. "We've got incoming." She was already moving, gathering medical supplies. They'd done this enough times now to have a routine. Oliver appeared in the doorway, somehow always knowing when he was needed. "I'll watch the twins," he said. 20 minutes later, a woman and 2 children stumbled through the shop's back door. She had a black eye, split lip, and the familiar look of someone who'd been systematically destroyed. "You're safe now," Isabella said, immediately checking injuries. "He'll find me," the woman said. "He always does." "Not here," Marcus said firmly. "Here, you're under our protection." "Who are you people?" the woman asked, looking around the shop with confusion. Isabella smiled, remembering her own first night here. "We're family. Maybe not by blood, but family nonetheless." As dawn broke over Houston, they sat with the new arrivals, sharing coffee and stories. The woman's name was Maria, her children Diego and Luna. Her husband was a cop, which made escape seem impossible. "Seemed impossible for me too," Isabella said. "My husband owned judges, police, entire corporations. But here's what he didn't own: people like Marcus, like this community, like you, when you decide to fight back." Maria looked skeptical but hopeful, the same expression Isabella had worn 2 years ago. The cycle continued, but now it wasn't just about survival. It was about transformation. Every person they saved became part of the network, paying it forward, creating an ever-widening circle of protection and hope. "Think we'll ever run out of people to save?" Oliver asked, helping Diego with homework while Luna played with the twins. "Probably not," Marcus admitted. "But that's okay. We'll just keep fixing what's broken." "Cars and people," Isabella added. "The family business," Oliver concluded with a smile. As the shop filled with the normal chaos of customers and cars, with Isabella fielding CEO calls between treating injuries with Marcus, teaching Oliver advanced engine repair while bouncing a twin on his hip, the truth became clear. William Thornton and Marcus's father had saved each other in Vietnam. Their children had saved each other in Houston. And now their grandchildren would grow up in a world where power meant protection, where strength meant shelter, and where family was anyone who needed to belong. The shop's new motto, painted by Oliver under the sign, said it all: "From depths to heights, we rise together." In the end, that's all that mattered. Not the money or the company or even the justice. Just the simple revolutionary act of opening a door to someone in need and building a family from the pieces of broken lives. Marcus looked around his shop. Their shop filled with mechanical parts and medical supplies. Toys and legal documents. The controlled chaos of a life fully lived. His father would be proud. William would be proud. And somewhere, in whatever peace the universe granted to those who died violently, maybe even Alexander could find solace in the fact that his son had found the father he deserved, even if it wasn't the one who gave him life. The story that began with a desperate knock on a rainy night had become legend in Houston, but for Marcus Isabella and their children, it was simply Tuesday. There was work to do, cars to fix, companies to run, children to raise, and families to save. The door was always open, the light was always on, and in a world full of Alexanders that made all the difference. The memorial garden behind Rivera and Thornton Automotive bloomed with spring flowers as Marcus knelt beside the newest addition, a bench with a simple plaque, William Thornton and Joseph Rivera Sr., veterans, fathers, friends across time. 10 years had passed since Isabella and Oliver first stumbled through his door. The shop had expanded 3 times now, occupying half the block. But more importantly, it had become the flagship location of a network that spanned across America 327 safe houses disguised as ordinary businesses, each one a beacon for those escaping domestic violence. "Dad, you're going to be late," Oliver called from the shop entrance. At 17, he was taller than Marcus now, with his mother's sharp intelligence and his grandfather William's vision for justice. He'd graduated high school 2 years early and was finishing his engineering degree at MIT while remotely managing the network's security systems. Marcus stood brushing dirt from his knees. "Your mother already there? She's been at the office since 5. The Senate hearing is today." The Senate hearing on corporate accountability, Isabella was testifying about Thornton Energy's transformation and the legal framework needed to prevent another Alexander. She'd become the face of corporate reform, her story of survival and rebuilding inspiring legislation that would protect whistleblowers and abuse survivors. Marcus arrived at the federal building to find it surrounded by media and supporters. Signs reading "Justice for Workers" and "Isabella's Law" filled the crowd. He slipped through the side entrance Carmen had arranged, finding his family in the waiting room. The twins, now 8, were arguing about who got to hold baby Grace, their youngest sister, at 2 years old. James, their 5-year-old brother, was meticulously organizing everyone's bags, already showing the same attention to detail that had made his namesake Marcus's army buddy such a good soldier. "There's Daddy," Sarah announced, the more observant twin. She had Isabella's dark hair, but Marcus's steady demeanor often serving as the family's emotional barometer. William Will, to everyone, immediately launched into an explanation of the legal precedents Isabella would be citing, his 8-year-old mind already grasping complex concepts that would challenge most adults. "She's going to change everything," Will said confidently. "The law will make it so no one can do what Alexander did again." "That's the hope, buddy," Marcus said, scooping up Grace, who immediately grabbed his face with chubby hands. "Dada," she said seriously, then pointed at Isabella on the preparation room's TV screen. "Mama's strong." "Yes, she is," Marcus agreed. Isabella appeared in the doorway, professional in her charcoal suit, but softening immediately at the sight of her family. The years had been kind to her, the haunted look long gone, replaced by confidence earned through struggle and triumph. "Ready?" Marcus asked. "With all of you here, always." The hearing room was packed. Isabella took her seat at the witness table, the weight of thousands of survivors' hopes on her shoulders. But she wasn't alone. Marcus sat directly behind her with their children, Carmen beside them with her legal notes. Nicholas Thornton in the gallery, having become one of their strongest allies in corporate reform. "Mrs. Rivera Thornton," the committee chair began. "You've submitted a comprehensive proposal for corporate accountability reform. Can you explain why existing laws are insufficient?" Isabella leaned into the microphone, her voice clear and strong. "Senators, existing laws assume corporate criminals fear legal consequences. But when you have enough money, you don't fear laws, you buy them. Alexander Thornton owned judges, prosecutors, and police commissioners. He murdered my father, attempted to murder me, and terrorized our son for 8 years. The system didn't stop him, it enabled him." She continued for 2 hours, detailing every failure, every loophole Alexander had exploited, every official who'd been bought. The committee was riveted, some horrified, others taking furious notes. "Your proposal includes personal criminal liability for board members who ignore abuse," one senator noted. "Isn't that excessive? Is it excessive to expect board members to report crimes they witness? If a janitor saw what they saw and stayed silent, they'd be charged as accessories. Why should a boardroom be different from a boiler room when it comes to basic humanity?" The senator had no response. Oliver testified next, his teenage voice carrying remarkable authority. I was 7 when I learned to recognize my father's footsteps to know which ones meant violence. No child should have that knowledge. But thousands do because men like my biological father believe wealth places them above consequences. This law would change that.
Patat says seinem.
The hearing made national news. Isabella's law trended globally. Within 6 months, the legislation passed unanimously. Even senators in corporate pockets couldn't vote against protecting abuse survivors without political suicide. But for the Rivera Thornton family, the real victory was smaller, quieter. That evening, they gathered at the shop for their weekly family dinner. The tradition had started when it was just the 3 of them, and had grown to include not just their expanded family, but their extended chosen family as well. Mama Rosa, now in her 80s but still fierce, commanded the kitchen with help from her granddaughters. Mr. Chen's family filled 2 tables, 4 generations strong. Carmen was there with her husband Joey and their 3 kids, all of whom called Marcus Uncle and Isabella Aunt Bella. Tommy Chen, now a successful cybersecurity expert, had flown in from Silicon Valley. He'd never forgotten how this community had stood against Alexander, and he returned regularly to upgrade their security systems pro bono. Remember when it was just us in that tiny apartment? Oliver asked Marcus as they watched the chaos of dinner preparation. Best worst night of my life, Marcus replied. Worse because of what you'd both been through, best because it brought you to me. Dad? Oliver said suddenly, his voice serious. I need to tell you something. Marcus tensed, parental anxiety kicking in. I've been accepted to Harvard Law, full scholarship. I want to become a prosecutor specialized in domestic violence and corporate crime. Marcus felt his chest swell with pride. Following Aunt Carmen's path. Following yours and Mom's. You taught me that strength means protecting others. I want to do that through the law. Your grandfather William would be proud. Both of them would be, Oliver corrected. Your dad, too. They stood together watching the organized chaos of their family. The twins were helping Mama Rosa, which mostly meant sneaking tastes of food. James was organizing the table settings with military precision. Grace toddled between adults collecting hugs and treats with equal enthusiasm. Isabella appeared beside them, slipping her arm through Marcus's. The investigator called. They found another set of Alexander's victims' workers he had deported to silence them about safety violations. The foundation is bringing them back, providing legal status and compensation. How many more will we find? Oliver asked. Probably dozens, Isabella admitted. His evil had deep roots, but we'll dig them all out, heal what we can. Nicholas Thornton approached looking healthier than he had in years. Prison had paradoxically saved him forced sobriety, and therapy had helped him confront his complicity in Alexander's crimes. Isabella Marcus, he said formally, I wanted you to know I'm donating my remaining Thornton Energy shares to the Workers' Trust. It's what Father William would have wanted. Nicholas, that's millions of dollars, Isabella protested. Money I don't deserve. Let it do good for once. Before anyone could respond, the shop's emergency phone rang. The room quieted. Everyone knew what that sound meant. Marcus answered, his voice gentle. You're safe. We're at 4782 Westheimer. Back door will be open. He hung up and looked at the room. Without words, everyone shifted into action. Mama Rosa began preparing extra food. Mr. Chen's grandson started checking security cameras. Carmen pulled out legal forms. The community machine activated to save another family. 20 minutes later, a woman arrived with 3 children. She was pregnant, injured, terrified. Her husband was a prominent surgeon who'd convinced everyone she was mentally ill. No one believes me, she sobbed. He's so charming in public. We believe you, Isabella said firmly, already checking injuries. We've been where you are. You're not alone anymore. As the community embraced the new arrivals, Marcus thought about cycles, how violence created violence until someone broke the pattern. They'd broken it here in this shop, creating ripples of healing that spread far beyond Houston. Later that night, after the new family was settled in the safe house after the children were asleep, Marcus and Isabella sat on their home's porch. They'd bought the house near the shop 5 years ago, filling it with children's laughter and controlled chaos. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if your father hadn't known mine? Isabella asked. We'd have found each other anyway, Marcus said with certainty. Some things are meant to be. You really believe that? I believe that good people find each other when the world needs them to. Your father and mine in Vietnam, us in Houston, Oliver and whoever he'll save someday. Isabella leaned against him, watching stars barely visible through Houston's light pollution. The lawyers want me to write a book about everything. Will you? Maybe. But how do you explain this? She gestured at their life. How do you tell people that sometimes salvation comes from the most unexpected places, that a mechanic's shop can bring down an oil empire, that love can grow from fear? You tell them the truth, Marcus said simply, that broken things can be fixed if you're willing to do the work. Grace's cry interrupted them, bad dream probably. Isabella went to check returning with their sleepy daughter who curled between them, safe and loved. Story? Grace requested sleepily. Marcus began the familiar tale how a brave princess and her son escaped an evil king, finding shelter with a kind mechanic who helped them build a new kingdom where everyone was safe. And they lived happily ever after? Grace asked, though she knew the answer. They lived, Isabella corrected gently, with all the mess and joy and pain and love that living brings, and that was better than any fairy tale. As Grace drifted back to sleep, Oliver appeared in the doorway. The new family's settled. The woman's name is Catherine. Her oldest kid, David, is interested in engineering. I told him I'd teach him about cars tomorrow. The cycle continues, Isabella murmured. The good cycle, Marcus corrected. The one where saved people save people. The next morning brought controlled chaos as always. The twins had school presentations on family history they'd chosen to write about both their grandfathers, the veterans who'd saved each other across decades. James had organized everyone's schedules on a color-coded chart that would make any CEO proud. Grace was determinedly trying to fix a toy car, with a banana convinced she was helping in the shop. Oliver split his time between MIT coursework online and teaching David basic mechanics. The boy 13 and skittish from years of walking on eggshells slowly relaxed as Oliver patiently explained engine components. Your dad taught you all this, David asked. My dad taught me that understanding how things work gives you power over them, Oliver replied. Cars companies even fear once you understand the mechanism you can fix it or dismantle it. Isabella watched from the office, remembering her own Oliver at that age, terrified but trying to be brave. Now he was passing on what Marcus had taught him, creating another link in the chain of healing. Her phone rang the president's office. The Isabella's law signing ceremony was being scheduled, and they wanted the whole family there. We'll need someone to watch the shop, she told Marcus. Tommy's already volunteered. Says he owes us for giving him purpose when he was just a computer kid with too much time. We seem to collect people, Isabella observed. We collect family, Marcus corrected. The signing ceremony was held in the Rose Garden. Isabella stood beside the president as she signed legislation that would protect millions of abuse survivors. Marcus held Grace while managing to keep the twins from reorganizing the White House's furniture arrangement. Oliver and James flanked them, young men already despite their ages. This law, the president said, exists because one woman refused to let power win over principle. Isabella Rivera Thornton's courage in facing down corporate corruption while protecting her family has inspired a movement. Today, we ensure that no one else has to fight alone. The applause was thunderous, but Isabella's eyes found Marcus in the crowd. He mouthed, I love you, and she touched her father's pendant, now worn alongside a simple wedding ring that meant more than all the diamonds Alexander had ever bought her. After the ceremony, they visited Arlington National Cemetery. 2 graves side by side, newer stones among the thousands. The government had approved the burial of William Thornton and Joseph Rivera Sr., together brothers in arms, finally reunited. Oliver placed flowers on both graves. Thank you, he said simply, for all of it. The twins added their school reports, wanting their grandfathers to see their work. James left a perfectly organized stone arrangement. Grace picked dandelions and scattered them with toddler enthusiasm. They would have loved this, Isabella said, seeing their families united. They knew, Marcus said with certainty. Somehow they knew. As they walked back through the cemetery past thousands of markers representing thousands of stories, the Rivera Thornton family represented something unique, a tragedy transformed into triumph, corporate evil defeated by community good, and most importantly, proof that love could grow from even the darkest soil. Back in Houston, the shop reopened to its usual controlled chaos. Cars needed fixing, families needed saving, and the work continued. But now it continued with federal support, legal protection, and a network that grew stronger daily. "We've come far, Sus," Isabella said that evening, reviewing applications for new safe house locations. "And we've got far to go," Marcus added. Teaching Grace how to hold a wrench, she was more interested in banging it like a drum, but he remained patient. "Together?" she asked, though it wasn't really a question. "Always together, but," he confirmed. Oliver looked up from helping David with homework. "Dad." "Mom, I've been thinking. When I finish law school, I want to expand internationally. There are victims everywhere, not just America." "Ambitious," Isabella noted. "Necessary," Oliver countered. "Grandfather William thought globally. So should we." The twins immediately began planning which countries to help first, their 8-year-old minds already mapping worldwide justice. James suggested organizational structures with the seriousness of a tiny CEO. Grace continued banging her wrench, adding percussion to their planning. "From a single garage to the world," Marcus mused. "Your father would be amazed, Isabella." "Both our fathers would be," she corrected. "They saved each other in a war, and now we're waging a different kind of war against violence, against corruption, against the belief that power means permission to harm." The emergency phone rang again. Another family needing help. As they prepared to receive them as their community mobilized once more, the truth was evident: they'd built something unbreakable. Not because it was perfect, but because it was real. Rooted in shared pain, transformed into shared purpose. 10 years ago, a desperate woman and her terrified son had knocked on a mechanic's door in the rain. Now hundreds of doors opened daily, each one offering what Isabella and Oliver had found that night. Shelter, hope, and the radical possibility that broken things could be fixed, that evil could be defeated, and that family was whoever showed up when you needed them most. The shop's new motto, painted by the twins last week, captured it perfectly. Rivera and Thornton, fixing cars, saving families, building tomorrow. Alexander Thornton had built an empire on fear. They'd built something stronger on love. And unlike Alexander's empire, theirs would last, not because it was powerful, but because it was necessary, not because it was perfect, but because it was persistent, and not because it was easy, but because it was right. The 20th anniversary celebration of the Rivera Thornton Foundation filled Houston's largest convention center. Marcus stood at the podium, his hair now completely gray, watching as thousands of survivors, advocates, and supporters gathered to commemorate 2 decades since Isabella and Oliver first stumbled into his shop. 20 years ago, Marcus began, his voice carrying the weight of countless rescued families. "I was just a mechanic who opened a door. Today we've opened 847 doors across 6 continents. But this story isn't about numbers. It's about names, faces, and families who refuse to let violence win." Oliver, now 37 and the chief legal officer of the foundation, sat in the front row with his wife Maria, ironically not Marcus's sister, but a prosecutor he'd met during a particularly difficult corporate abuse case. Their 3 children, aged 8, 6, and 4, fidgeted beside them in miniature suits and dresses, already showing the Rivera Thornton mix of mechanical aptitude and legal precision. The twins Sarah and William, now 28, had taken different but complementary paths. Sarah ran the foundation's medical division, having followed Isabella's footsteps into pediatric medicine, but specializing in treating trauma and abuse survivors. Will had become an investigative journalist, his exposés on corporate corruption earning him 2 Pulitzer nominations before 30. James, at 25, served as the foundation's director of operations, his childhood obsession with organization evolving into a genius for logistics that kept their vast network running smoothly. Grace, the baby, at 22, had just graduated from MIT with dual degrees in engineering and social work, determined to design safe houses that were both mechanically sophisticated and psychologically healing. Isabella took the stage next, now 62, but carrying herself with the authority of someone who'd transformed an industry. Thornton Energy had become the world's leading renewable energy company. Its transformation from corruption to transparency studied in business schools globally. When I first met Marcus, Isabella said, finding his eyes in the crowd, I was convinced that power meant dominance, that strength meant never showing weakness. He taught me something different, that real power is the ability to lift others, that real strength is admitting when you need help. The audience was silent, many wiping tears. These weren't just supporters, they were survivors, each with their own story of escape and rebuilding. Catherine Morgan rose to speak next. She'd been the pregnant surgeon's wife who'd arrived at their door 10 years ago. Now she ran the foundation's West Coast operations, her eldest son David, having become an engineer who designed security systems specifically for protecting abuse survivors. The Rivera Thornton family didn't just save us, Catherine said. They taught us to save ourselves, then save others. My ex-husband was convicted last month, 15 years for attempted murder and fraud. But more importantly, my children know they're worthy of love without violence. The memorial wall unveiled that evening bore 847 names, every person the foundation had lost to domestic violence before they could reach help. Alexander Thornton's name wasn't there, but his shadow lingered in the statistics. 73% of victims were killed, trying to leave 91% had sought help that never came. We can't save everyone, Marcus said during the dedication. But every person we do save becomes a ripple spreading outward, changing the current. Tommy Chen, now a tech billionaire, who donated hundreds of millions to the foundation, had created an AI system that monitored emergency calls for signs of domestic violence, automatically alerting nearby safe houses. It had saved 218 lives in its first year alone. Marcus taught me that technology without humanity is just expensive machinery, Tommy said during his presentation. Every algorithm we write is designed around a simple question. How would Marcus and Isabella handle this? Nicholas Thornton, now 73 and long since released from prison, sat quietly in the back. He'd spent 15 years behind bars, but had used the time to earn degrees in psychology and social work. Upon release, he'd dedicated his remaining years to the foundation, his insider's knowledge of how abusers thought, proving invaluable in protection strategies. I can't undo what Alexander did, Nicholas had told Marcus when he first volunteered, but I can use what I learned from him to stop others like him. The surprise of the evening came when President Martinez, the third president to champion Isabella's law, announced new federal funding $2 billion over 5 years to expand the Rivera Thornton model nationwide. This isn't charity, the president declared. This is national security. Domestic violence costs America $8.3 billion annually in medical costs, lost productivity, and law enforcement. The Rivera Thornton Foundation has proven that prevention and intervention save both lives and money. After the formal celebration, the family gathered at the original shop. It had been preserved as a museum of sorts, the bullet holes still visible in the walls, the office where Isabella and Oliver first slept, now a shrine to survival. Hard to believe it all started here, Oliver said, running his hand along the workbench where he'd learned to change oil. Started before here, Marcus corrected. Started in a village in Vietnam, where 2 young soldiers decided to watch each other's backs. Oliver's eldest daughter, Isabella Marie, named for both her grandmothers, carefully examined the tools displayed in glass cases. At 8, she already showed the family gift for understanding how things worked. Grandpa Marcus, she asked seriously, why did you help Grandma Isabella that first night you didn't know her? Marcus knelt to her level, his knees protesting. He was 73 now, after all. Sometimes, sweetheart, you don't need to know someone to know they need help. And sometimes helping a stranger is how you find your family. Like how Great-Grandpa Joseph helped Great-Grandpa William in the war. Exactly like that. The emergency phone, now connected to a sophisticated dispatch system, rang. Everyone froze from habit, even though calls were now routed to trained professionals. The dispatcher's voice came through the speaker, family of 5 immediate danger, heading to Houston Safe House 7. Without discussion, the family mobilized. Even after 20 years, even with a vast organization handling operations, they still responded personally to cases in Houston. They arrived at Safe House 7, a converted warehouse that looked industrial from outside, but contained apartments, medical facilities, and legal offices, to find a scene painfully familiar, a woman with fresh bruises, 4 terrified children, and the hollow look of someone who'd lost hope. Isabella immediately began medical assessment while Marcus talked to the older children, his grandfather's presence immediately calming. Oliver started legal documentation. Sarah treated injuries. Will began investigating the abuser's background. James coordinated resources, and Grace worked with the younger children using engineering toys to distract and comfort. "You're all here," the woman said, recognizing them from news coverage. "The whole Rivera Thornton family." "We're your family now," Isabella said gently, "for as long as you need us." The woman broke down crying. "He said no one would believe me. He's a federal judge." "Alexander Thornton was an oil executive who owned judges," Marcus said calmly. "He's doing life in prison now. Your husband's position doesn't put him above justice, it just means his fall will be harder." As they worked through the night processing another family from violence to safety, 3 generations of Rivera Thorntons demonstrated what they'd built. Not just an organization, but a philosophy. Not just safe houses, but a movement. "Mom," Grace said to Isabella during a quiet moment, "I've been accepted to the diplomatic corps. They want me to establish Rivera Thornton protocols in refugee camps, places where domestic violence is epidemic but ignored." Isabella's eyes filled with tears. "Your grandfather William would be so proud. Both of them would." "I'm not abandoning the family work. You're expanding it," Isabella interrupted. "Just like each of us has, Oliver through law, the twins through medicine and journalism, James through operations. Now you'll take it global in a new way." Marcus watched his youngest daughter with pride. Each child had found their own way to continue the mission, adapting it to their skills and the world's evolving needs. Dawn broke over Houston as the new family settled into their temporary home. The judge husband had already been arrested. Will's investigation had uncovered financial crimes that made domestic violence charges stick harder. "How do you keep doing this?" the woman asked. 20 years of seeing the worst of humanity." "We don't see the worst," Isabella corrected. "We see the strongest people who survive impossibly cruel situations and still choose to trust to hope to rebuild. You're not the worst of humanity. You're proof of its resilience." Later in the shop's memorial garden, the family held their weekly remembrance, a tradition started after Nicholas had suggested honoring not just the survivors, but the lost. Oliver's children placed flowers on their great-grandfather's memorial bench. The twins' families Sarah had married a trauma surgeon, Will, a fellow journalist, added their own tributes. James's partner, a criminal psychologist who joined the foundation 5 years ago, read names of the week's rescued families. 47 this week, he reported, including 3 international cases. "Remember when saving one family felt impossible?" Isabella asked Marcus. "Now it's routine," he replied. "But never routine if you know what I mean." She did. Each rescue still mattered individually, personally. They'd industrialize salvation without losing its intimacy. Carmen, now retired but still sharp at 75, arrived with her extended family. Her daughter had become a judge, one of the good ones she always emphasized, while her sons ran a legal aid organization specifically for abuse survivors. "Joey would have loved seeing this," she said, referring to her late husband. "He always said you two would change the world." "We just fixed what was broken," Marcus said, his standard response. "Same thing," Carmen replied. Mama Rosa had passed 5 years ago, but her restaurant still stood, now run by her granddaughters and serving as an unofficial headquarters for the neighborhood network. Mr. Chen was in assisted living, his mind still sharp but his body failing, visited daily by family members who reported on the foundation's progress. "He says to tell you the books are balanced," his grandson reported, whatever that means. Marcus smiled. Mr. Chen had always insisted that good deeds created debts that must be repaid forward, that the universe kept careful accounts of kindness. "Tell him we're still paying it forward," Marcus said. That evening, a package arrived at the shop, unusual since mail typically went to the foundation's headquarters. It was addressed simply to the mechanic who opens doors. Inside was a journal, water-damaged and decades old. The first page bore a date from 1968, and handwriting Marcus recognized immediately his father's. Today I saved a man named William Thornton. He says he'll never forget. I told him to forget the debt, but remember the duty, save someone else when their time comes. He promised his children would know this story, would understand that salvation is a chain that must not be broken. Isabella read over his shoulder, both of them crying now. He knew, she whispered. Your father knew this would happen. Or hoped, Marcus corrected. Sometimes hope is enough to make things real. The journal contained more detailed accounts of his father's service, his philosophy of fixing broken things, whether mechanical or human, his belief that small acts of kindness could topple empires of cruelty. The final entry, dated just before his death, was addressed to Marcus. Son, I'm leaving you more than a shop. I'm leaving you a mission. Someone will come who needs more than their car fixed. When they do remember, we don't just repair engines. We rebuild lives. The Thornton boy I saved has a daughter. If she ever needs help, you'll know what to do. He knew about me before I was even born, Isabella said in wonder. Or he knew about the pattern, Marcus suggested. That good people find each other when the world needs them to. Oliver called from the main shop. Mom, Dad, you need to see this. They found the entire family gathered around Tommy's laptop, watching a live feed from the International Criminal Court. The Rivera-Thornton protocols have been adopted as international law, the judge was announcing. Any nation signing this treaty agrees to establish safe houses, protect survivors, and prosecute abusers regardless of their political or economic status. 137 nations have already signed. Tommy reported, his fingers flying over the keyboard. With more announcing every hour. Up from a garage in Houston to international law, Will said, already composing his article. That's going to be one hell of a headline. The headline isn't about the law, Sarah corrected. It's about the lives that will be saved. Grace's phone rang the diplomatic corps, wanting her to lead the implementation team. Go, Isabella and Marcus said in unison. But the foundation will continue, Oliver assured his youngest sister. We've got Houston. You take the world. As Grace accepted the position as Sarah returned to the hospital, she now ran as Will rushed to file his story, as James coordinated with international partners, as Oliver prepared legal frameworks for global implementation. Marcus and Isabella stood in the shop where it all began. Any regrets? Isabella asked. Marcus thought about his simple life before that stormy night, fixing cars, living alone above the shop, existing, but not really living. Only one, he said. Isabella looked concerned. I wish we'd had more time. 20 years isn't enough to save everyone who needs saving. Then it's good we've taught others to continue, Isabella said. Oliver, the twins, James, Grace, they'll have their 20 years. Then their children will have theirs. A dynasty of salvation, Marcus mused. Better than a dynasty of oil, Isabella replied.